For those of you that don't know me, my name is Doris Gelbman. I am an attorney here in Charlottesville, and my law practice is elder law, and I practice elder law exclusively. I don't do divorces, I don't do real estate, I won't get your kid out of jail when they get drunk driving charges. I don't do any of those things. I exclusively practice elder law. And that's a lot of things. I encourage you to, if you want to know more about elder law and what I do, I encourage you to visit my website, which I'll put up in just a minute. Today we're going to talk about one way of aging, what I call gracefully, and that is staying in your home. Many people fear that at the end of their life or the latter part of their life they're going to end up in nursing care and assisted facility, which to a person, to anyone I've ever talked to, no one wants to do. There are good reasons for that. So let's talk about staying in your home. And the first thing I want to do before I actually get to the meat of that subject is to talk about why are all these considerations important. And that really, when I do these kinds of analysis with people, it requires doing a little bit of looking at a crystal ball and assessing what does the future hold for us. And, you know, I don't actually have a crystal ball, and neither do you, but there's a couple things I know. One of the things that's going to happen are going to be changes in our health and welfare, and what that means is that our health, of course, is going to fail, and some of us that's going to happen slowly and sort of gracefully and until we just go, and in other people that might happen very suddenly. We might have a very sudden illness or accident that accounts for changes in our health. As a result of that, our personal care needs, our ability to function in our own home is going to change. We are going to need assistance with simple things like cooking and cleaning and getting dressed and those sorts of things. Our medical concerns are going to become much more demanding, and we'll talk a lot more about that, but it's very likely that we'll have chronic conditions some of which will be critical, and we're going to need some assistance with those things. And those often involve very complicated medical therapies or medications. The other thing that we're going to look at in the future is finances, and this is often the hardest thing for people to wrap their head around. And one of the things that I'm acutely aware of is that your wealth accumulation phase, as financial advisors talk about this, has changed, and you are no longer likely to be investing in things, high-risk investments like stocks and bonds that have a larger return. Remember the old higher the risk, the higher return sort of thing. As you grow older and things become much more fixed, you're much less likely to be taking risks. So your investments will either be in property, in bonds, which are far less risky, although these days, who knows, or cash. Right, in cash in a variety of ways, and some people literally bury it in a can in the backyard, despite my warnings about rust taking its toll on that. It's very likely, and certainly in this community my experience has been, that your most valuable asset is probably your home. Your income is now also fixed, and by fixed, what do I mean? You're very unlikely, if you're now retired, to begin working again, and if you are, I'm very sorry about that. You're likely to be a greeter at Walmart or wiping tables at McDonald's, and in that case, there's very little we can do to help you. It's unlikely to be the case in this group, but it may be. You probably are receiving Social Security by the time you're 62, 65, possibly 67. And the change in Social Security is likely to only be a cost of living increase from year to year. This year, for example, I believe it's 1.07% is the cost of living. It's linked to inflation. You may have a pension. You're lucky if you have a pension or a 401k that's paying you some money, but that is, again, as I said, unlikely to increase over the remainder of your lifetime. If you have investments, as I said, they're probably lower risk, and they're providing a less return on your investment than they may once have done. Your living expenses, for the most part, are going to remain the same. So if you're paying rent, you're going to continue paying rent. You're paying utilities and other expenses, transportation, food, all of those kinds of things. The most incredible thing is, if you look at this graph, this is age over cost in medical expenses alone. And the ages at the bottom there start at 0 to 4, kind of high in pediatric years. And as you go along, somewhere around 40, 45, up to 50, 54, yeah, it's okay. And then boom, it skyrockets. Those are your medical expenses. And remember that your income is fixed, and your assets pretty much are going to remain the same. And look at the increase in your health care costs. And as we know, those are all continue to go up. So the strategy when you're talking about how are you going to manage through the end of your life, and whether you stay in your home or whether you go to nursing care, assisted living, or an adult child, or go live with one of your siblings, remains the same. The strategy is, how do I make those assets last and prevent or minimize, and very often impossible to prevent, but minimize a negative equity situation. And that is where you're spending all of your income to live and dipping into your savings or investments to make up the difference. That's a negative equity situation. Very, very common as we grow older. Most people do that. But how do you do that in such a way that you make it last as long as you need it to? And the key to that is, how do you make that last and still remain within a lifestyle that's comfortable in what you want? You don't want to be deprived of things that you enjoy doing or want to be doing. So what does the future hold from a practical standpoint? That was the financial. From a practical standpoint, we may still be able to do things like shopping. So for example, I can get to Walmart, a supermarket, and I can, even if I have pretty severe arthritis or problems, I can get in those little carts, little motorized carts, and pick out my groceries. I can still plan meals and all those things. But what I may not be able to easily do, number one, is drive, right, get there and back. The other thing I can't easily do is lift and carry. There's a seat up here and one there and one there. Please make yourself comfortable. What I can't do, also carrying groceries is very difficult. I don't know about you. I live on the 3rd floor of an apartment with no elevator. So that already is difficult. I'm 54, and I have to walk my dog up and down those stairs. Those things become quite difficult. I have considered moving several times, more every day. My personal business, as I grow older, right now I'm perfectly comfortable writing checks, paying my bills, sorting out. One of the things I know that's most difficult, that I had the most difficulty with my mother and father as they grew older, is they could not understand the explanation of benefits and the bills from the hospital and how to pay those things, what portion was theirs, and all that kind of stuff becomes very confusing, and more confusing every day. Bank statements, credit card statements, figuring out all of those things and matching it up, making sure that it's all authentic, all become much more difficult. Also, things like maintenance of your yard and your home require physical strength and stamina to do these things. Are you still going to want to be doing these things after you've retired, and are you physically able to do them, or can you afford to pay someone to do those things? Cooking and housekeeping is another big problem for some folks, not everyone. A lot of people really enjoy doing those, and they're able to do them right up to the end of their life or near the end of their life. I know and you'll hear me use my mother and father very often as examples, because they're ones that I know best and watch them very intimately go through these stages. But I remember my mother saying to my father a few years ago before he died, she said, "Henry, you retired from your business and you came home and you sat in your Barca lounger and did whatever you did, read the paper, whatever. I never retired." She continued to shop and prepare meals and clean house and do all the things that she had done for 56 years of their marriage. She never retired. Fortunately, that's not the case anymore. She lives with my sister now. My sister has to do all those things. My mother is 84. If I'm 54, she's 84.